There's been support from labor unions around the proposed Fair Pay Bill. It's a bill that wants to reduce income inequality and salary discrimination in South Africa. It proposes amendments to the Employment Equity Act to promote fairness, transparency within the labor market. It proposes provisions that says, well, it bans a salary history. Employers can't request or rely on a candidate's previous salary when hiring or setting pay. Also, mandatory pay transparency. All job adverts must disclose a salary amount or a salary band. Also, equal pay for equal work. That's very important. Also, the right to discuss salaries. Do you have that environment at your workplace that you generally know whether or not a colleague with similar responsibilities is getting paid similar to you? The sponsor of this bill is Bosa leader and also chairperson of Parliament's Standing Committee on Appropriations, Mmusi Maimane. Good morning, Mmusi. Really appreciate your time. The logic, or at least let's say the genesis of this proposed private members bill. Let's get more transparency in the workplace when it comes to salaries.
Good morning, Lester, and good morning to fellow South Africans. Firstly, it's citizen-led. South Africans have come out from various walks of life saying, look, we understand the context of this country. We want to make sure that if we're going to address inequality, let's be fair on pay. And I think as citizens came and worked with us, spoke with us, we had a legal team that did an incredible job at drafting the legislation. We had a public hearing on Monday, of which various sectors of society, of which labor was included and business. And I think for the clarion call among South Africans is that if we're going to address inequality, one of the ways to do it is to remunerate people fairly, equally, and transparently.
Let me put some concerns of maybe the employers' associations. Well, there's competition concerns. Salary transparency could reveal pay structures to competitors. There should be flexibility when it comes to negotiations. We really want you to join us. I need to provide a decent carrot to a prospective talent joining our workplace, and therefore I may have to dangle a significant carrot there. There's also the issues around employers may cite confidentiality concerns, that whatever someone earns should be private, and that sharing them could cause a negative working environment with tension and resentment.
Well, first and foremost, all of that is already happening anyways as a start. And secondly, that what our argument is, if you are going to compete transparently, so that you can also have the perverse incentive of competition, which is to drive wages down, which is to say, if I ask you to disclose where exactly your salary came from, and if I just increase it by a marginal amount without ever having to advertise what the job is worth, you can appreciate that it can drive wages down, because in a sea of unemployment and people being desperate for work, if they're not willing to discuss their salaries, you can have other employers who are simply saying, actually, no, half a loaf of bread type of argument is better than a full loaf. Therefore, we don't have to pay you what you're worth because you're competing with so many thousands of other people for the same job. So competition works both ways. But what I think for me is equally as important is that there should be no crime in transparency. I think it's important for all of us as South Africans to say, if you're talking a competition among CEOs, the reality of it is that once that information is disclosed, we know the CEO got paid X, and then they got bonuses, they got other incentives, which are equally discussed. And frankly, it's helpful for people who work within that environment and who are looking to work within that environment to say, well, the inequality between the highest paid worker and the lowest paid worker is X. Therefore, I must decide as an prospective employee whether I think this is the best company to work for. So I just think in South Africa, where the moment to introduce secrecy to a process, whether it's in government tender procurement or whatever it is, it leads to other challenges. So I think it's a crucial intervention for transparency.
Look, I enter into negotiations in my own personal private business of whether I'm invoicing or whether someone asks me if I could write something from them. I either give them what I think my time is worth, or I ask them, what is your budget? Because that's what you kind of want to introduce when you talk about salary history, where employers are asking someone, well, we want to see, or prospective employers, we want to see your pay slip first, so then we can set a salary band for you. Why would you think this would be discriminatory, or if not exploitative, of someone who may be desperate to leave their current job and look for something new?
All we're arguing for, Lester, is to say, in negotiations, I want to use your example that you contract services to people. In transparency, your negotiating power is far better. It is, you are in a position where, as political parties or others would say, how do we build strong individuals or strong families, so that when you come and negotiate, you are negotiating from a position of strength rather than from a position of absolute darkness. Because on another day, if I asked you to say something, to write something, and you said to me, well, what's your budget? And I said, I'm not going to disclose that. It means whatever figure I put towards you, out of desperation, you may be willing to accept it, which is what often is labor practice. But it may very well mean that I perpetuate a fairly historical injustice. Now, let's think about this from the perspective of women, for argument's sake. Often, women come into spaces of work, and the same job being done by a man, because none of that is disclosed, a woman could literally come in and negotiate themselves into a position where they are being paid woefully lower for doing exactly the same job. So my argument still holds, is that even in contract work, even in work that we're taking place, let us empower the individual coming in to negotiate with as much information as possible. Because then, Lester, I think we forget that in the main, when you look at income distribution in the country, the median wage in the country is sitting, for household income, sitting at about 95,000. So that's where it currently sits, which means in the main, if you're finding someone who was working perhaps maybe in a province, i.e. the Eastern Cape or whatever, now looking for a job in Cape Town, if you benchmark their salary relative to where they've come from in the Eastern Cape, you discount the fact that cost of living in another city may be higher, you discount all of those factors. Let us be transparent at advertising, at negotiation, so that citizens who are seeking employment are better positioned to know.
Mmusi, unrelated, and I have you on the line. I don't know when I'll speak to you again. Unrelated, looking forward ahead at 2026. There's been some suggestions from some parts that Mmusi Maimane should be running as the mayor of the city of Cape Town under a Unite for Change banner. We know high-profile politicians are running in other parts of the country. Helen Zille in Johannesburg. Have you heard these rumors? Can you maybe talk to us? Is there a consideration from you that you're running for mayor of the city of Cape Town?
Look, it's a great honor, and and I love the city of Cape Town. I think it can be governed better, and it can certainly make a significant impact. What we're undergoing a process to make sure that we finally put forward to the people of Cape Town the best candidate possible, and to ensure that we can bring about change. So whilst I appreciate the rumors, I think let's work the process out.
I think that's what you call a politician's non-answer. Mmusi Maimane.
The laugh should give it away.
Mmusi Maimane. I know, read into that what you want.